is Denise Hurley, and welcome to Harmonies. This is a show where I interview musicians locally and nationally, and we get to find out a lot about the music scene and what's going on. And I'm delighted to have Joel Mongeon. Mongeon here. Okay, Joel is from Lancaster, and he is a guitarist and a folk singer. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you.
To Harmonies. Have you lived in Lancaster all your life, or
Most of my life?
most of your life? So you've grown up here. Okay.
I now live about 4 miles from where I grew up. So.
Oh, really?
Big move. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm really thrilled to have someone from Lancaster come on the show. So, can you tell me a little bit about your songwriting?
Sure. I've been writing songs basically as long as I can remember, and that has taken many different forms over the years. And it's only in the last 3 or 4 years that I've kind of honed in and started to look at songwriting as more of a craft, and trying to express things in a more refined kind of way.
Okay.
And this is kind of part of my greater goal to make my writing and my poetry and my prose more universal,
Okay.
more digestible and accessible for more people to understand and empathize with.
Okay. So, basically, what are your songs about?
A lot of different things. Most of the time, I'd say they're about internal conflicts,
Okay.
such as struggling with faith, struggling with existentialism, that kind of thing. But they can take the form of, a lot of different topics. Most of the time, they kind of skew dark. I like to cover the more gritty topics.
Okay.
And that comes from struggling with depression a lot,
Okay.
certainly. But I tend to think that if you're someone who is artistically inclined, who is well equipped to deal with the dark subjects, then you should, because other people might not have the strength to.
Sure.
And that's something that comes up in my conversations with other artists a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But for the stars and their signs, but for the way they align, but for the fates we're forever assigned, we were meant to be. But for the fount and its well, but for the fortune it tells, but for the face on the coin when it fell, we were meant to be. And I lay my burden down, down, down. And I lay my burden down, down, down. But for the stars and their signs, but for the way they align, but for the fates we're forever assigned, but for the winds that warn us in time, but for the moon and its maddening light, we were meant to be.
What musicians are your influences with your music?
There are tons. I would say that as far as my guitar playing goes, probably John Martin and Bert Jansch, who were popular in the UK in the late 60s, early 70s.
Oh, okay.
They kind of reinvented what a guitar can mean in the context of folk music. Going a little bit more the jazzier route, a little bit more unconventional, but it still has its place in the structure of a folk song.
Okay.
And that sort of allowed me to examine my own playing and, again, sort of refine what it is that I was doing at that time into something a bit more focused.
Okay.
How am I to know which road I am to roam, and which will lead me to my end? And how many in all the momentary homes that beckon around every bend, around every bend, around every bend. How am I to know which stream I am to cross, and which will lead me to the sea? And how many in all the days that I have lost just to hear the sirens sing? Hear the sirens sing. Hear the sirens sing. How am I to know which hand I am to hold, and which will lead me into hell? And how many in all the demons I have told to catch me if I ever fell? And if I ever fell, 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 if I ever fell, if I ever fell, if I ever fell.
So, are you self-taught? Have you?
I'm mostly self-taught. My dad showed me basic chords and kind of taught me how to play by ear, in as much as you can teach someone that when I was a kid. And then probably middle school, high school was when I started just learning by ear and teaching myself and hearing other people play and techniques that I found interesting. And just I took it from there and sort of tried to emulate a lot of people. And then eventually, I think, probably landed on somewhat my own sound. I
Sure.
hope. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I think
Yeah.
that it is your own sound, for sure.
Thank you.
Shall I wait for my keeper to come with the key, or call for the reaper to come bury me? Or shall I finally in exile be free, free from this cold, wicked world? Shall I become the creature by sorrow enslaved, or call for the preacher to read o'er my grave? Or shall I break the chains? Would I then be saved, saved from this cold, wicked world? Shall I wait in the shadows, afraid to be found, or call for the gallows to raise round about? Or shall I cry aloud that I'll never be bound? Bound to this cold, wicked world.
I'm interested in your podcast, the
Yeah.
Friday Night Folk.
Yeah.
It just seems like a great way to reach an audience. Can you explain what a podcast is for folks that may not
Yeah,
know, and what the format is?
Sure. So first, a bit of a disclaimer. My podcast, which is called Friday Night Folk, shares a name with a music series in Connecticut.
Okay.
So I've had people reach
Oh,
out
yeah,
to me
okay.
on the podcast email saying, "Can I play your music series?"
Sure.
And I'm like, sorry. And I'll give them the contact info that they're looking for.
Right.
I try to be friendly. So anyway, not to be confused with the All Souls Unitarian Church, I think is what it
I
where
think
it is.
that's what
Yeah.
it is, yes.
So you've heard of it.
I have heard of
Yeah,
it. I
yeah.
have.
I didn't know that when I decided to name my podcast Friday Night Folk. But for those who don't know, a podcast is sort of a departure from your typical radio show where you're allowed to talk more casually.
Okay.
You're allowed to cover a myriad of topics just willy-nilly, you know? And to be honest, they had a profound impact on me when I first started listening to them because of that.
Okay.
Because it's a departure from conventional radio shows, conventional talk shows. And hearing a lot of people talk about what kind of makes them tick as artists forced me to examine that same thing in me.
Okay.
And so in a way, it drove me to be more creative and to search for what it was that really fulfilled me, you know, what it was that art did for me,
Okay.
in a fulfilling way. So it's just people talking. That's
Okay,
really all
that's
a
what it is.
podcast is.
Okay.
Sometimes without the implication that anything is being promoted, or that sometimes it's just for fun, and my show is for fun.
Okay.
Friday Night Folk is it's similar to this, except it's not filmed.
All right. Okay.
It's I have local musicians come to my studio in Clinton, and we just talk casually.
All right.
For the most part. We're entering into a new phase of the series where we're doing more topic-based conversations.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's casual conversation. And then at the end, there goes my phone. And then at the end, we play a song together and record it. And
Okay.
so that
Nice.
makes its way into the episode as well.
Okay.
And so now I'm about to release a compilation of these 12 songs that we've done in studio, and it's me and 12 other singer-songwriters from the area.
From the area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, from Worcester, Boston, Lowell, and a few from out of state as well who were
Okay.
in town visiting.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds great.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
It's a lot of fun.
I bet. So it's just, do you talk about what's going on in their lives, or just what the trends are, or?
It's typically casual conversation that I, as an interviewer, will steer in the direction
Sure.
of songwriting, folk music if that's their genre, because
Right.
that's what I'm personally interested in.
Right.
That. Songwriting, performing, artistry in general, and now this new phase that we're entering into is I'll ask, what's a topic that you've written a song about?
Okay.
Let's talk about that topic and get kind of deep into it for a half hour or so and see where that takes us. And then we'll both play that song together.
Okay. So how can people tune into your podcast? How can they find you?
It is everywhere. It's on Spotify, it's on Stitcher, it's on Apple Podcasts, Google Play. And it's hosted through a website called simplecast.com.
Okay.
So you can also go to fridaynightfolk.simplecast.com. And if you also search for Friday Night Folk on SoundCloud or Bandcamp, you'll find just the songs that we record
Sure.
and without the interviews attached.
Okay.
But just, high quality audio files of the songs. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Sounds great.
It's a lot of work.
Oh, I can imagine it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have lived in the garden since the first light shone. We have all known the sweetness of its fruit. We have learned to hide our hands from the thorns that strike like serpents at our every move. We have lived in the ocean since the first rains fell. We have all known the distance to its shores. We have let down our anchors when the seas are still and learned to tread the wake of a storm. We are older than time, we are undying light, we are holy and wise, we are born only to rise. We have lived on the mountain since the first clouds broke. We have all known the thunder in its skies. We have learned to take shelter in the shadows cast by those who hide from heaven's eyes. We are older than time. We are undying light. We are holy and wise. We are born only to rise. We are older than time. We are undying light. We are holy and wise. And we are born only to rise.
Now, the other thing I'm intrigued about is the DIY music culture that you referenced
Yes.
when we went back
When we
and
spoke
forth.
earlier, yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. DIY, or it was pointed out to me recently that we have more of a DIT culture, which means do it together
Okay.
rather than do it yourself.
Sure.
So as a culture, it is a community of people who prefer to take their own initiative, to be creative, not on somebody else's dime,
Right.
and not to make anybody else a dime.
Okay.
You know, so it kind of takes away the possibility of being exploited by a company or a venue
Okay.
or anything like that. So that is where the ethics kind of play into it.
I see. Okay.
It's typically people will set up their own performance spaces like I have done in Clinton.
Sure.
They'll have, DIY or DIT shows. They have a community of people helping them to set this up. And they are hosting these, most of the time, donation-based shows,
Right.
or sometimes there's a cover charge. But most of the time, from what I've seen, it's typically a pass-the-hat, a basket house, if you will.
Okay.
And it's just to sort of create a different kind of economy, to encourage performers and artists to be proactive in creating and getting out there and sharing their art with other people without having to worry about promoting too much, without
Right.
having to worry about what the optics are like.
Okay.
And instead just being in an environment where everyone is supportive and everyone encourages you to share.
Okay.
you know.
So are you seeing a lot of that sort of space popping up in the area?
In different forms.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a space in Rockland on the South Shore called the
Okay.
Puzzle Factory. I have a lot of friends who go there. And that's kind of a bit of a more underground scene. Quite literally, it's in a basement. and, but that is also the headquarters for a company called Together Records, which is,
Okay.
an independent record company that a lot of my friends are on that label.
Okay.
I will soon be on that label when I release my record. And and that's really like a heart of a community. People go there because they know it's so open and so accepting to all kinds of genres and all kinds of different art. And the people there are just really, really passionate about what they do, whether it's painting or whether it's, knitting or crocheting.
Sure.
Or, and they're able to put all these things on display. It's like a mini flea market with a built-in music venue, except much less organized than
Right.
what you're picturing. And then there are a few things, I said earlier that it takes different forms. I would include the Hearing Room in Lowell
Yes.
in this category.
Yes.
And shout out to them. They just achieved a nonprofit,
I know,
a charitable
I saw
nonprofit
that.
status.
I'm so happy for Mark.
That's-
I
I
mean,
know,
I think that's
yeah.
fabulous for them.
I love Mark and Kaylin dearly, and I've been playing there ever since they first opened. And not what I would call a DIY space, but this has come up on my podcast. It's the kind of venue where you can book a date, and this is what I always do. I book a date, and then I find 2 other people to play the night with me, and Mark kind of lets me handle that end of the booking myself, so that I can
Okay.
sort of construct the night that I want.
Right.
And so that I can get 2 other performers, and it's a really cohesive, it's a bill that makes sense.
Right.
And then we can kind of create the experience for both us and for the audience and for the owners. And so that's a really special thing that they've got going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when Mark first started up the venue, and he was so excited about it. And I was really thrilled for him.
Yeah.
So and it's nice to hear that it's starting to thrive, and
Yes.
he's getting a lot of different musicians coming to his venue. So
Yeah.
I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad that you're performing there. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Good for you.
I've played there for, I don't know, about 8 times now.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
I love it there.
So why don't we talk a little bit about your series?
Sure.
It's the Woolen Mills Music Series.
Yes.
In Clinton.
Yes.
Been trying to figure out where it is, to tell you the truth, because I do want to come to one of your shows when I have the opportunity.
So, first, a little bit of history
Okay.
about the building. In the 1800s in Clinton, there was the Bigelow Carpet Company.
Okay.
And so it was the Bigelow Carpet Mills, and where I host my music series is in the Woolen Mills building of the Bigelow Carpet Company. That's where it got its name. And it's not Nitro, but the big building like across Main Street from Nitro.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? There's a boxing gym there, and there's...
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
know where it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's in one of those buildings. It is basically a vast factory floor that has been abandoned for a while. I
Okay.
think probably 15 years or so. No one has used it. And it used to be a part of the Buck Chair Company.
Right. Okay.
And so I work for the owners of the building, and I'm sort of the superintendent of the property, and
Okay.
I kind of manage the tenant activities. And so I basically asked my boss, can I wall off a portion of this factory floor that no one is using, and can I set up there? Originally, it started as, can I have band practice
Right.
there?
Okay.
And then that sort of turned into me like hosting my own graduation party
Okay.
when I graduated from college, and I just asked a bunch of friends over to play, and since then, it has increased in its level of decoration, its level of sophisticated sound system, and lighting, and I just kind of keep adding on to it season after season. And so I'm about to hit the 2-year mark of hosting shows, and in that time, it's only been maybe 15 concerts that we've had, but it's always 3 or 4 acts, and it's a DIY space, and so it's a lot of people coming together and just supporting each other. I do take donations. Most of the time, I'm able to pay the performers at least a modest amount of money, and that's very important, because even though you're taking away one specific type of economy, when you're looking at a DIY space, you don't want to take economy away completely.
Right, okay.
People are still doing work for
Right.
you. You try to take care of them. And so now we're probably entering into our 4th season, or just coming to the close of our 4th season, I guess, where I'm asking people, it's from the Boston area, from the Worcester area, from Lowell, and there are a few people in and around Clinton, but not as many as you'd like there to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're looking for more local folks to come in to
Would be
perform.
nice.
I think that would be interesting to see who's out there and who is looking for a performing space.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would love to see more people from this area find a place to come and play and
It would be nice.
and yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the series sounds like a wonderful series, and as I said, I'm hoping to make it there sometime.
let's go the tides, and the waters cease to rise. Then will they find a way to the sea and its other sides? When our roots do break their oath, and the garden gives up its ghost, then will they find a way to harvest endless growth, to harvest endless growth, to harvest endless growth, to harvest endless.
So how can people reach you if they're interested
Okay.
in hearing you play or
Yeah.
hearing more about the series?
So if they want to hear me play, I guess the best way to do that is, look up Woolen Mills Music Series on Facebook.
Okay.
If you have any questions about the venue or you want to request to play there, you can just send a message and I will respond, maybe promptly.
Okay.
I'll try to. I don't really have a artist page or anything that I
Right, okay.
use to promote shows. I just have my one account, really.
Sure.
But also on the podcast, I always record an intro so that I can plug dates for whoever my guest was, and I'll also plug my own dates.
Okay.
So, any given episode of the podcast, you can, if it's a recent one, you can tune in, and I will have said everywhere that I'm playing and everywhere that my guest is
Okay.
playing in that
All right.
in that episode. So
So we'll have people take a look at your Facebook page
Yeah.
and check out your podcast so they know what's going on.
that would be great.
Anything else you'd like to mention?
Ooh, I already did the shout out to the hearing room, which I try to do with everything. Every episode of my podcast actually has a
Oh, okay.
shout out to the hearing room. I think that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I want to thank you for coming on to Harmonies. It
Thank
was a
you for having
pleasure.
me.
And certainly enjoyed your music and speaking with you. And thanks again.
Thank you.
And this is Denise Hurley from Harmonies. I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.